Every morning at exactly 8 a.m., Aisha walked through the school gate quietly. She never talked to anyone. She kept her head low, her school bag tight on her shoulder, and went straight to class. She always reached on time, always sat in the third row, and always answered present when her name was called during roll call. Her voice was soft, barely loud enough for the teacher to hear. But after that she disappeared. No one really noticed at first. The class went on. Students laughed, joked, raised their hands, and passed notes. Aisha was never part of it. Some teachers thought she was shy. Some didn't even realize she was gone. But one thing was clear. After the attendance, her seat was always empty. One afternoon, during a science class, Sarah, student who sat behind Aisha, whispered to her friend, "Have you seen Aisha? She was here this morning." Her friend shrugged. Maybe she went to the nurse, or maybe she's skipping, but that didn't make sense. Aisha wasn't the kind of girl who broke rules. She didn't talk back, didn't play in the hallways, didn't even laugh loudly. She was quiet. Too quiet. For 2 weeks, the same thing happened. Aisha came, answered roll call, then vanished. Sometimes, a student thought they saw her near the stairs, sometimes near the lockers, but no one could say for sure. One day, during break time, a girl named Mehak went into the girls' bathroom near the science lab. As she entered, she paused. The room was quiet, too quiet. She walked toward the sinks, then heard a soft sob. It came from the last stall. Mehak called out, "Hello, is someone there?" Silence. She waited, then the sound stopped. She checked under the stall and saw the edge of a school shoe. Someone was inside, sitting crying. Mehak didn't say anything. She left quietly, but the moment stayed with her. The next day, she told her teacher, "I think someone hides in the bathroom every day. Maybe they need help." The teacher listened, nodded, and said she would look into it. But days passed, and nothing changed. Then one morning, the school principal, Mr. Khalid, walked by the science wing. He was an older man, calm and kind, but also sharp. He had started noticing the pattern. Aisha, present at 8 o'clock, then gone. He checked her records. Her grades were excellent. Homework was always done. No behavior issues. But there were no signs of her in class after the first 10 minutes. Curious, he decided to watch. He stood quietly near the staircase as the first period started. He saw Aisha come in, enter her class, and sit down. 2 minutes later, the bell rang. The teacher entered. Roll call began. "Aisha," the teacher called. "Present," she replied softly. Mr. Khalid waited. 5 minutes later, he saw her again. She stepped out of the classroom quietly, her head still low, and walked down the hallway alone. She looked around once, then slipped into the girls' bathroom near the science lab. Mr. Khalid stood frozen. Something was wrong. He walked slowly to the door, unsure of what he'd find. He didn't want to scare her. He tapped lightly on the door. "Hello, is someone inside?" No answer, just silence. He stepped in. The bathroom looked normal at first. Clean, quiet. But when he looked toward the last stall, he noticed something strange. There was a small cloth rolled and placed near the door, like someone was trying to block the light. He walked closer and knocked. I yooshed inside. Silence. Then a small sound, like a sniff. "Please," a voice whispered. "Just go." Mr. Khalid's heart tightened. He didn't open the door. He sat on the clean floor outside the stall and said softly, "I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to understand." No reply. He stayed there, waiting. A few minutes passed, then the stall door creaked open. Just a little. Inside, Aisha sat on the floor, her knees pulled to her chest, her bag beside her, a soft, worn-out photo frame in her hands. Around her were small things, snacks, a blanket, a water bottle, even a tiny book. Her eyes were red. Mr. Khalid looked at her gently. "Is this where you come every day?" Aisha nodded slowly. "It's quiet here. No one sees me." He didn't ask too many questions. He didn't scold her. Instead, he said, "Can I sit with you for a while?" Aisha looked surprised, but she didn't say no. So he sat in the bathroom, on the cold floor, next to a girl who had been hiding for weeks. The bell rang again. Second period had started, but Mr. Khalid stayed. Finally, Aisha whispered, "Please don't tell anyone." Mr. Khalid looked at her. "I won't, but I can't leave you here. Either you're not alone anymore." She looked at him for the first time. Really looked. And in that moment, something changed. Mr. Khalid sat quietly outside the stall while Aisha sat inside. The silence between them was not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that said, "I'm here." He didn't rush her. He didn't ask more questions. He just waited. After a few minutes, Aisha slowly pushed the stall door open a little wider. Her eyes were tired, and her hands held tightly onto a small wooden frame. Mr. Khalid glanced down and saw a photo inside it. It was a woman smiling brightly, wearing a yellow scarf, her eyes full of warmth. "Is that your mother?" he asked, gently. Aisha nodded. She looked at the photo for a long time before saying, "She died 3 months ago. I haven't told anyone." Mr. Khalid's heart dropped. He understood now. This wasn't just a hiding place. This was where I came to remember, to grieve, to feel safe. "She used to say I was strong," Aisha whispered. "But after she left, I didn't feel strong anymore. Everyone at school just moved on. They talk, they laugh, they push past me in the hall. But I can't do any of that. She wiped her eyes. This place is quiet. I can talk to her here. Mr. Khalid leaned his back against the bathroom wall. I'm sorry, Aisha. I had no idea you were carrying this alone. Aisha hugged the frame tighter. I didn't want anyone to ask questions or give fake sympathy. I just wanted a small place where I could cry without feeling weak. Mr. Khalid nodded. You're not weak. You're brave. Braver than most. Aisha looked up confused. Brave? Yes, he said. You came here every day, carried this pain, and still showed up. That takes strength. Real strength. Aisha blinked, unsure what to say. No one had told her that before. After a few minutes, Mr. Khalid stood up slowly. I won't force you to go to class right now, but I want you to come to my office later, just to talk, not as a principal. As someone who wants to help? Aisha nodded slowly. Okay. Before leaving, he asked, do you want me to lock this bathroom for now, so no one else comes in? She hesitated, then shook her head. No, I'll go soon. Mr. Khalid smiled softly. Take your time. He left the bathroom with a heavy heart. He walked straight to his office, sat down, and took a deep breath. He knew this wasn't something he could ignore, but he also knew he had to be careful. If he handled it the wrong way, Aisha might close herself off again. Later that day, Aisha quietly entered his office. She still looked nervous, but calmer than before. She sat across from him, still hugging her school bag. Mr. Khalid spoke gently. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. You can just listen. Aisha nodded. He began by sharing a small story about his own childhood, about how he used to hide in the school library when his father passed away. I was 11, he said, and I thought no one would understand. But one teacher noticed. She didn't fix everything, but she listened, and that helped. Aisha looked at him with curious eyes. So, you understand? More than you think, he replied. Aisha took a deep breath. Sometimes I talk to her, my mom, in the bathroom. I imagine what she would say. I write to her in my diary, too. She reached into her bag and slowly pulled out a small notebook. It was filled with notes, drawings, pieces of her heart. She handed it to him carefully. You can read one page, just one. Mr. Khalid accepted it respectfully. He opened a page in the middle. It said, Today everyone laughed in class. I wanted to laugh too, but I felt like I wasn't part of the world anymore, like I was just watching from far away. I miss her voice. I miss being seen. Mr. Khalid closed the notebook and looked at Aisha. Thank you for trusting me. She nodded, but didn't speak. Then she asked, Are you going to tell the teachers? Or send me to a counselor? Mr. Khalid paused. Not unless you want me to, but I do want to help you find a better space. A place where you don't have to hide. Aisha frowned. There's no such place in this school. Maybe not yet, he said. But maybe we can create one together. Her eyes lifted slightly. Like what? A room? Quiet? Safe? With books? Soft chairs? Art supplies? A place to breathe. You won't be alone, but you also won't be forced to talk. Aisha looked surprised. Just for me. For anyone who needs it, he said. But you'll be the first. She thought for a moment, then said, If we make it, can I bring my mother's photo there? Mr. Khalid smiled warmly. Of course, it will belong to you. Aisha gave the smallest smile he had seen yet. That evening, after school, Mr. Khalid met with Sarah, the school counselor, and a few teachers he trusted. He didn't share Aisha's name. He only said, One of our students is grieving quietly. We need to build something soft. Sarah nodded. We've needed a room like that for years. Within days, plans began. An unused storage room near the library was cleared. Walls were painted light blue. Pillows were added. Shelves for books, blank notebooks, small lights, and on the door, a sign that read, The Quiet Room. Mr. Khalid invited Aisha to see it first. As she stepped inside, her eyes grew wide. She walked around slowly, touching the cushions, picking up a book, running her fingers across the desk. Aisha started spending her breaks in the quiet room. Every day after roll call, instead of going to the bathroom, she walked to the soft blue room near the library. She no longer had to hide. The room had become her new corner of peace. The photo of her mother sat on the small table by the window, next to a candle-shaped lamp that stayed warm throughout the day. Aisha brought her diary, her colored pens, and sometimes her sketchbook. She would sit near the window, look at the sky, and write letters to her mother. I missed you today, one letter read. But I didn't cry in the bathroom. I had a better place. You would have liked it here. She still didn't talk to her classmates much. She still ate lunch quietly, usually under a tree. But something had changed. She started smiling when the bell rang. She began listening in class. And slowly, without forcing herself, she started to speak. One morning, Mr. Khalid entered the quiet room while Aisha was sketching. He sat beside her and asked gently, What are you drawing? She turned the paper around. It showed a small girl sitting in a stall, hugging a photo frame. But behind the stall, the walls had disappeared. Instead, there was light, a window, a bird flying. Mr. Khalid looked at it for a while and said, That's powerful. Aisha smiled softly. That was me, before, but now I feel like I can breathe again. He nodded. You know your drawing could help other kids. Maybe. They're hiding too, in different ways. Aisha looked unsure. What if they laugh at it? Or what if they see themselves in it? He replied. That day, Mr. Khalid spoke with the school art teacher. He shared Aisha's drawing. With her permission, the teacher was moved. She suggested something bold, a small art wall in the school hallway where students could post artwork that speaks from the heart. Aisha was hesitant, but finally said, only if mine goes first. When the drawing was pinned to the board, no one laughed. In fact, students stopped and stared. Some asked who made it. Some just stood silently, lost in thought. Later that day, another drawing appeared, then another. Soon, the art wall became a quiet form of voice for many students who didn't speak much in class. Aisha walked past it one afternoon and saw a sketch of a boy crying alone in his room, drawn by someone named Rihan. Underneath it were the words, I miss who I used to be. Aisha stood in front of it for a long time. She didn't know Rihan, but she felt close to him in that moment. A few days later, Aisha entered the quiet room and saw someone else sitting in the corner. It was a girl from class 9 named Zara. She was hugging her knees, tears on her cheeks. Aisha hesitated, then walked over and placed a soft pillow beside her. Zara didn't speak. She just nodded in thanks. Aisha sat near her but didn't ask questions. She simply stayed. After a while, Zara whispered, I saw your drawing. Aisha looked at her. Zara continued, it helped me come here. My mom left us. I've been hiding too. Aisha listened quietly. That was the first time she truly understood the meaning of her art. It was no longer just for herself. It was for others who were lost. Mr. Khalid noticed the changes. The quiet room now had visitors almost every day. Some stayed for 5 minutes, some stayed during breaks, some just left notes in the little box marked say something without speaking. Aisha checked the box one afternoon and found a note that said, I pretend I'm strong, but I'm not. Thank you for helping me feel seen. Another said, I lost my grandma. I thought no one would care, but I care about your story. It gave me hope. Aisha collected those notes in her notebook. She called them her hope letters. Weeks passed. Aisha began doing better in school. Not just in grades, but in energy. She started answering questions in class. She raised her hand once in English and surprised the teacher. At lunch, a few girls invited her to sit with them. She politely said maybe next time, but her smile said everything. Even at home, her father noticed the difference. One evening while setting the dinner table, he asked gently, Are things better at school? Aisha nodded. There's a room now where I can feel close to Mom. He looked down and whispered, I miss her too. It was the first time they had spoken about her mother in weeks. Aisha reached across the table and held his hand. Back at school, Mr. Khalid called a staff meeting. He spoke about grief, silence, and how students often hide their pain behind perfect grades or quiet behavior. He asked teachers to watch more closely, to listen not just with ears but with eyes. Sometimes the loudest cry is the one you never hear, he said. The teachers agreed to give students space to breathe, to check in, to build trust. That same week, a new poster was added outside the quiet room. It read, You don't need to shout to be heard. You just need to be safe. Aisha saw it and smiled. She knew that message wasn't just about her. It was for everyone. She returned to the art wall the next day and saw a new note pinned under her drawing. It was written in blue ink, neat and careful. It said, Thank you for being brave first. Because of you, I didn't hide today. Aisha stood there, holding her books, eyes full of quiet joy. She didn't know who wrote it, but she knew one thing clearly now. Her pain had a purpose. Her hiding had turned into healing. Not just for her but for many. Aisha walked into school with her sketchbook tucked tightly under her arm. It had become her shield and her voice. The hallway buzzed with noise, students chatting, lockers opening, footsteps rushing, but inside her heart, it was calm. She had her place now. The quiet room had given her something no one else had before, safety. Still, some days were harder than others. That morning, she had seen a photo of her mother while scrolling through old pictures on her father's phone. It hit her like a wave. The sadness, the ache, the memory of her laugh. It stayed with her all morning. By the time she reached the classroom, she could feel her eyes getting heavy, but she pushed through. She sat in class, answered questions, and kept her head down. When the break bell rang, she didn't even wait. She walked straight to the quiet room. When she opened the door, she was surprised. Someone was already inside. A boy, maybe from class 10, sat in the corner. His hoodie was pulled up, his face was down. He didn't even look up when she entered. Aisha paused. She didn't know if she should stay, but something inside her said yes. She sat quietly on the other side of the room. She opened her sketchbook and began to draw. Slowly, the lines formed her mother's face again. Then she added something new, a hand reaching out to another. She wasn't sure why, but it felt right. After a while, the boy spoke softly. You come here often. His voice was rough, but not unkind. Aisha nodded. Yeah. He was quiet again. Then he said, My brother passed away last month. No one talks about it. They just say, be strong and move on. I can't. Aisha looked up, eyes gentle. You don't have to be strong all the time. He looked at her for the first time. You understand? Yes, she said. My mom passed away too. There was silence, but this time, it was a silence full of understanding. He nodded slowly. This room, it's different. Like the air is softer. Aisha smiled. That's why I come here. They didn't talk much more, but something had changed. A quiet connection. Before he left, he looked at her drawing and said, "That's beautiful." She replied, "Thanks, it helps me breathe." Later that day, during art class, the teacher announced a new project. We're going to make a memory wall. It will show what matters to you, what you've lost, what you've gained. A way to speak without words? The idea made Aisha's heart race. She didn't know if she was ready to share that much. But that evening at home, she opened her old notebooks. She flipped through pages of letters she had written to her mom. Today, I sat under the tree, just like we used to, one said. Another read, I wish I could ask you how to be strong, but I think I'm learning. As she read, she cried quietly. Then she wiped her tears and began to create. Over the next few days, Aisha worked hard. She cut pieces of colored paper, added soft textures, glued photos, and drew new sketches. Her memory wall wasn't loud. It didn't have glitter or bright paint, but it was full of heart. When the day came to display the walls, she placed hers gently in the middle of the hallway. Other students had theirs, two pictures of pets, grandparents, places they missed. But Aisha stood out in a different way. There was a drawing of the bathroom stall, then the quiet room, then hands holding, and finally, a mirror. On it, she had written in neat black letters, "I'm still healing, and that's okay." Students stopped to look. Some whispered, some cried. One girl touched the edge of Aisha's drawing and whispered, "I feel this." A teacher walked by, paused, and said, This speaks louder than a speech." Aisha stood in the corner, watching. Her heart beat fast, but she didn't feel afraid. She felt seen. That afternoon, Mr. Khalid called her to his office. "I saw your memory wall," he said. "I'm proud of you." Aisha looked down, a little shy. "I didn't think people would understand, but they did," he said. "You've started something bigger than you realize." Then he opened a drawer and pulled out a letter. "There's a counselor who runs art healing workshops for young students who've lost someone. She saw your work. She wants you to be part of her next session." Aisha's eyes widened. "Me? But I'm not an artist." Mr. Khalid smiled. "You're more than that. You're a healer with a pencil." The next week, Aisha attended the workshop. It was held in a small hall filled with cushions, soft lights, and gentle music. Children sat around in a circle, each with a canvas. Some looked scared. Others were already drawing. Aisha sat quietly at first. Then a little girl sat beside her. She looked about 7 and held a torn teddy bear. "My brother gave me this," she said softly. "But he's not here anymore." Aisha looked at her and said, "I lost someone to draw and helped me remember the good parts. Maybe it can help you too." The little girl nodded and began to draw. Aisha watched her, heart full. By the end of the session, Aisha had drawn something she never thought she would. It was her mother holding her, but this time, Aisha wasn't crying. She was smiling, and beside them was a door, open to light. The art teacher came by and said, "That's powerful." Aisha nodded. It feels like letting go, but not forgetting. That night, she showed the drawing to her father. He looked at it for a long time, then said, "She would be so proud of you." Aisha smiled, and for the first time in months, she said, "I think I'm proud of me too." Aisha stood near the school gate the next morning, watching students enter with noisy laughter and loud greetings. She didn't feel nervous like before. Her sketchbook was safely tucked inside her bag, and her mother's photo now had a place in her school life instead of being hidden inside a bathroom stall. But today felt different. Something in her heart was heavy again. As she walked through the corridor, she heard whispers, but they weren't like before. This time her name was in them. "That's the girl who made that drawing." Someone said, "She's the reason the quiet room exists." Another added. A few students even smiled at her. One girl walked up and said, "Your art made me cry in a good way. Thank you." Aisha gave a small nod, unsure how to respond. She wasn't used to being noticed. All those months of hiding made her think she was invisible. But now, slowly, people were seeing her and, more importantly, understanding her. During lunch, she decided to sit under the old tree, the one near the playground. It was the same spot where she used to eat alone. But this time, she wasn't completely alone. A girl named Sana walked over, holding her lunch tray. "Can I sit here?" she asked. Aisha hesitated, then moved her bag. They ate quietly for a few minutes before Sana spoke. "I saw your sketch of your mom. I lost my grandmother last year. I couldn't draw anything for months. But after seeing your wall, I picked up my pencils again." Aisha looked up. "You draw?" Sana nodded. "Not as good as you, but yeah." A gentle smile passed between them, and just like that, a quiet friendship began. Later that day, Mr. Khalid asked Aisha to stay after school. She walked into his office and noticed a file open on his desk. "I got a message from the school board," he said. "They want to feature your story in the quiet room in the Regional Education Journal." Aisha's eyes widened. "A magazine?" "Yes," he said. "It could help other schools create safe spaces like ours." Aisha's heart beat faster. But what if people think I'm weak? Mr. Khalid shook his head. They won't. They'll think you're strong because you didn't hide your pain. You used it to help others. That evening, Aisha told her father about the article. He smiled proudly and said, "Your mother always said you had a quiet kind of magic. I think this is it." The next few days passed quickly. The magazine team came to take photos. They asked Aisha questions when she first started hiding, how the quiet room helped, and what message she wanted to give others. Aisha answered, "Honestly, sometimes you don't need advice. You just need a soft place to fall." The journalist wrote that line down and smiled. The article was published the following week. It had a photo of the quiet room, Aisha's memory wall, and her sitting near the window with her sketchbook. The title read, "The Girl Who Found Light in the Dark." Students from nearby schools started visiting to see the room. Some even left notes on the wall. "We wish we had a room like this. Thank you, Aisha, for showing us we're not alone." Aisha read each one with care. Her heart, once full of grief, now held something else purpose. But healing is never a straight line. One cold morning, while walking into school, Aisha saw something that stopped her breath. A new student had scribbled rude words on the edge of the quiet room door. The words weren't loud, but they were sharp. "Crybaby corner. Only weirdos go here." Her fingers froze. Her stomach tightened. For a moment, the old feeling returned, the fear, the shame. She backed away from the door and ran to the bathroom, not the quiet room. She locked herself in the same stall she once hid in. The cold floor felt familiar. The silence wrapped around her like it used to. Minutes passed, her heart raced. She felt like she had gone backward. Then she heard a knock, a gentle one. "Aisha." It was Mr. Khalid. "I saw the door. I cleaned it. I know what happened." She didn't answer. "You don't have to hide here anymore," he said. "The stall is not your home now. The world saw your light. One shadow can't take that away." Slowly, Aisha opened the door. Her face was pale, but her eyes had a spark. "Why do people do that?" she asked softly. "Sometimes when others see something beautiful they don't understand, they try to break it," he said. "But you're not breakable." That afternoon, Aisha returned to the quiet room. She sat quietly, thinking. Then she took a piece of paper and pinned a new note on the wall. It said, "Yes, I cried here, but I also healed here. And now, I help others. If that makes me weird, I'm proud to be." The next morning when she came back, she saw 5 more notes under hers, all agreeing, all thanking her. The one rude comment had been buried under kindness. The principal later announced a new rule. No student was allowed to write on the quiet room unless it was positive or healing. He even created a journal log where students could sign in and write what the room meant to them. Aisha flipped through the pages. "This room stopped me from giving up. I found a friend here. This room reminded me of who I am." She closed the book and whispered to herself, "This is bigger than me now." One afternoon, as she walked past the hallway, she noticed something strange. A girl stood near the bathroom, eyes red, holding a notebook tightly. Aisha recognized that look. It was the same look she had once carried. She approached slowly. "Hey," she said. "You okay?" The girl shook her head. I don't know where else to go." Aisha nodded. "Come with me." She led her down the hall, opened the quiet room, and held the door open. "This helped me. Maybe it can help you too." The girl stepped inside. As Aisha watched her sit down, she realized something. She was no longer the girl hiding in the stall. She was the one opening the door for someone else. Aisha started walking through the school halls with a quiet kind of confidence. Her steps weren't loud, but they no longer hid. She began to notice things more now, the way someone's shoulders dropped when no one talked to them. The girl who always sat alone in the library. The boy who looked out the window like he was waiting for someone who would never come. She understood all of it because she had lived it. The quiet room was no longer just her safe place. It was becoming a safe place for many. Every week, a few more students came in. Some stayed for 5 minutes. Some stayed longer. Some left notes. Some just sat silently. But all of them walked out looking a little lighter. Mr. Khalid added more pillows, more books, even a small speaker for calming music. The school counselor visited every few days, sometimes bringing in paints, sometimes journals. And one day, she asked Aisha something unexpected. "Would you like to help me start a small peer group?" Aisha blinked. "Me? Yes," the counselor said. "You know what it's like. You understand what most adults don't. If you're willing, we can guide a few students together. Nothing formal. Just a small circle of sharing." Aisha hesitated, then said, "Okay, I'll try." The first group meeting was quiet. 4 students sat in a circle: Isha, Sana, Rehan from class 10, and a younger boy named Zaid, who barely spoke. The counselor opened the session with a question. "What does silence mean to you?" For a while, no one spoke. Then Aisha said to me, "Silence used to mean pain. It meant I had no one to talk to, but now, it means peace. It means I have a place to be myself." Rehan nodded slowly. "Same. I didn't want to talk to anyone after my brother died. I thought no one would get it, but this room, this group, it feels different." Zaid didn't speak, but he smiled a little. That was enough for now. The sessions continued weekly. They didn't always talk about sadness. Sometimes they just drew together, or shared songs they liked. They wrote poems. Aisha even taught them how to express feelings through art. One afternoon, she showed them how to paint without brushes, just using fingers. It's messy, she said, but sometimes messy feelings need messy colors. They all laughed, and for once, sadness didn't feel so heavy. Outside the quiet room, Aisha's life continued to change. She was doing better in her studies. Her teachers noticed she was more engaged. During a group project in science, she offered to draw diagrams and ended up leading the team. Her classmates were surprised. "Aisha, you're actually really good at this," one boy said. She smiled shyly. "Thanks. I'm learning to speak up more." At lunch, more students began inviting her to sit with them. She didn't always say yes, but she didn't always say no either. Her circle was growing not because she was trying to be popular, but because people felt safe around her. She had become someone others looked up to without even knowing it. At home, things were slowly healing too. Her father started cooking again, not just simple meals, but real ones like her mother used to make. One evening, he brought out a photo album. "Let's remember together," he said. They flipped through old pictures, laughing at silly moments, wiping tears at others. Aisha felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: closeness. She hugged her father and whispered, "I think Mom would be proud of us." He nodded, holding her tight. "She always believed in you." One rainy morning, something unexpected happened. The school received a visitor, a woman from the National Education Board. She was tall, wore glasses, and carried a file filled with papers. She had heard about the quiet room from the regional magazine article and wanted to see it for herself. Mr. Khalid gave her a full tour. Aisha was invited to speak with her too. She was nervous, but the woman was kind. "I've read your story," she said. "It's powerful." Aisha arrived at school early one morning, her bag slightly heavier than usual. Inside was a small box filled with colored pencils, blank cards, and folded paper cranes. Over the past few nights, she had stayed up making each one by hand. On the wings of each crane, she wrote a message. Some said, "You matter." Others read, "It's okay to cry," or "Your story is important." She planned to leave them quietly in places where students might find them: on benches, in lockers, inside library books. It wasn't something the school had asked her to do. It wasn't part of any program, but it was something her heart told her was needed. She remembered the days when no one spoke to her, when the silence felt like a storm inside her. If even one student smiled after finding a paper crane, then the late nights were worth it. That day, as she walked through the hallway, she saw something that stopped her. A boy named Bilal stood frozen in front of the quiet room door. His hands were clenched. His eyes were red. A few students walked past him without stopping. Aisha walked over slowly. "Hey," she said gently. Bilal didn't move. "Do you want to go in?" she asked. He shook his head. "I can't," he whispered. "It's too much. Too many feelings." Aisha nodded. "It's okay. You don't have to go in, but you don't have to face this alone either." He looked at her, confused. She sat down right there on the floor, her back against the wall. After a moment, he sat beside her. They didn't talk. They just sat, breathing in silence. After a while, he pulled out a small photo from his pocket. It was crumpled and old, showing a younger boy smiling next to him. "My cousin," he said. "He was like my brother. He passed away last week. I didn't get to say goodbye." Aisha looked at the photo. "He looks kind." Bilal nodded, his voice breaking. "He was the only one who listened to me." Aisha pulled out one of her paper cranes from her bag and handed it to him. "You can keep this," she said. "I made it for someone who might need it." Bill turned it over and read the message written on its wings. "Even broken wings can still fly." Tears filled his eyes, but this time, he didn't hide them. "Thank you," he whispered. That afternoon, Aisha visited the principal's office. Mr. Khalid smiled when he saw her. "You've become the heart of this school," he said. Aisha shook her head. "I'm just trying to be who I needed when I was hurting." Mr. Khalid leaned forward. "And that's what makes you special." He paused for a moment, then added, "There's something I want to show you." He handed her a folder. Inside were letters, dozens of them. They came from students, parents, even teachers. All of them spoke about the impact the quiet room had made. One letter read, "My son talks more now. He says there's a girl in school who makes sad days feel less heavy." Another read, "Before this room, I didn't know how to process grief. Now I have a place to go and breathe." Aisha's eyes filled with tears. She never expected her pain to help so many. The next day, the school held a small ceremony. The quiet room had now helped over 100 students. The staff wanted to honor its importance. Aisha was asked to speak. She stood in front of a crowd for the first time. Her voice trembled at first, but she remembered the bathroom stall, the darkness, the fear, and how far she had come. "I used to think pain made me weak," she began. "But I learned that sharing pain can build something strong. This room saved me, and now it's saving others. We're all carrying something. Let's carry it together." The crowd clapped. Some stood. Some wiped away tears. Mr. Khalid nodded proudly. After the ceremony, a small group of students approached her. One girl handed her a bracelet made of red thread. "It's a friendship bracelet," she said, "from all of us. For being brave." First, Aisha wore it on her wrist that day, and every day after. That night, at home, her father made her favorite meal. He placed 2 plates on the table, one for her and one for her mother's photo. Aisha lit a candle beside the frame. "We're doing okay, Mama," she whispered. "I'm not hiding anymore." The following week, something new started. Schools from nearby cities sent messages asking how they could build their own quiet rooms. Aisha helped write a simple guide, along with the school counselor. They named it Soft Spaces. It included steps for teachers, advice for students, and messages of hope. On the front page was a drawing Aisha had made: a small room with light pouring in, and a student placing a paper crane on a shelf. The guide was shared online and printed for other schools. One day, while walking down the hall, Aisha saw Zaid, a quiet boy from her group, sitting with a younger student, showing her how to draw. Aisha smiled. Healing had a ripple effect. Her courage had become someone else's strength. In the library, she saw a book with one of her cranes inside. On the desk near the staff room, a student had left a note that said, "Today, I chose not to give up. Thank you, quiet room." Aisha kept collecting these moments in her journal. They weren't big or loud, but they were real. They were proof that kindness could echo louder than pain. As the school year neared its end, Aisha stood once again in the hallway where it all began. The bathroom stall, now clean and unused, felt like a different world. She touched the small sticker she had left months ago. The words were still there. "You are not alone." She smiled, then turned and walked toward the quiet room. Inside, a new student was drawing at the corner. Aisha didn't interrupt. She just placed another paper crane on the table and walked away. The school was quiet that morning, the kind of quiet that made every footstep echo a little louder. Aisha walked slowly through the halls, her fingers brushing the edge of her bag. Inside was a letter, one she had written the night before, folded neatly and sealed with care. It was addressed to the next student who feels alone. She didn't know who would read it or when, but she believed someone would need it one day, just like she once needed a quiet space, a kind voice, a small sign that she wasn't invisible. The quiet room door was slightly open when she arrived. She stepped inside and saw a few changes. There were more drawings on the wall, more paper cranes hanging from the ceiling, and even a small bookshelf labeled "Stories that Heal." Aisha smiled. What began as her secret hiding place had now become a living story written by many hands, each adding something gentle, something real. She sat near the window and looked out at the playground. The sky was clear, and a few students were setting up chairs. Today was the final day of school. There would be a small assembly, goodbyes, and promises to meet again. For Aisha, this day carried more weight than any test or award. It marked the end of one chapter and the quiet beginning of something new. She pulled out her sketchbook and opened to the last page. With soft strokes, she began to draw a girl standing in the middle of a hallway, holding a paper crane, and behind her, a door filled with light. She titled it, "The First Step." Later, during the assembly, the principal stood at the podium and spoke to the students. He talked about achievements, about growth, about the changes the school had gone through. And then he said, "There's one student I want to speak about today. She didn't win a sports trophy or a debate medal, but what she gave this school is far more powerful. She gave us honesty. She gave us healing. She reminded us that silence holds stories, and that pain, when shared with kindness, can build something beautiful." Aisha's heart pounded as he called her name. She walked up slowly. The crowd clapped, but it wasn't the loud clapping of a big performance. It was the soft, warm kind that meant something. Mr. Khalid handed her a small plaque. It read, "To the girl who turned pain into light." After the assembly, students and teachers came up to her. One girl hugged her and said, "You saved me without even knowing me." A boy handed her a folded note and whispered, "I wrote my first poem because of your drawings." Aisha accepted each word, each smile, each tear, and placed them all gently inside her heart. Before leaving school for the final time that year, she returned to the quiet room. She placed her letter on the table, under a small rock, where someone would find it one day. She whispered, "Whoever you are, you're not alone. I've been there too at home." Her father waited with 2 cups of tea. They sat together on the rooftop as the sun began to set. "You've changed," he said softly. Aisha looked at him. "Do you think Mom would be proud?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled something from his pocket, a small locket with her mother's photo inside. "She always said you had her eyes and her heart," he said. She was right. Aisha held the locket and closed her eyes. The wind was soft against her face, and for a moment, she felt her mother there with her. Not in pain, not in memory, but in every breath of courage she had taken. The next few weeks passed slowly. Summer came. Aisha spent time reading, drawing, and helping at the community center. One day, she was invited to speak at a small event for teachers and counselors. She stood in front of them not as a student, but as a voice. "We always ask kids to be strong, to move on," she said. "But sometimes, what we really need to say is, I see you. I hear you. You don't have to pretend." That's what the quiet room gave me, a place to stop pretending. The room was silent as she spoke. One teacher wiped her eyes, another clapped softly. Aisha stepped down from the stage with her heart full. She didn't speak loudly. She didn't have to. Her story spoke for itself.